Why is the federal minimum wage still 7.25? People keep electing politicians who strictly oppose amending that law. Keep in mind, 30 states have a minimum wage higher than 7.25 hour. As such, the average minimum wage worker in the United States actually earns significantly more. In 2019, it was 11.80 hours, and since 17 states index their minimum wage to inflation, it's almost certainly higher today. Because people vote for people who want make it higher. Elites don't care. The market sets the wages. The minimum wage according to the law is 7.25 where I live, but businesses compete for workers and unskilled labor goes for 14-24 hour depending on the industry. The culture war. Instead of fighting for ourselves, we're fighting each other over made-up divisions. We live in a new Gilded Age. Minimum wage workers haven't bribed politicians enough. Because billionaires exist are in charge. We just had an election. A majority chose the leader and party who wants to destroy unions and not raise it. Why is it still that? Because Americans are horrifyingly uneducated and misinformed. Because the vast majority of Congress are multimillionaires and have no idea what it is to struggle to survive. They just don't care. Over the last 18 years, Congress has raised their pay 9 times and raised the minimum wage once. Cause it doesn't matter? Almost nobody makes that wage even for 14-year-olds starting at Taco Bell. Source: did HR up until last year and industries publish wage guides. Because the rich want feel become rich without the poor. Because the government is full of people so old and out of touch that they have no concept of living expenses in the area they are supposed to represent. Nearly every state has a higher minimum wage because they know you can't live on the federal one. But a few keep their heads in the sand in an effort to ignore the problem. There's a very backwards way of thinking that roughly assumes people are in a depressed situation due to their own choices or out of laziness. Then one example is paraded around as typical of those with their hands out, preferably a minority, and publicly shamed as being a drain on society. We're run by a government of Scrooges, and unfortunately do not see ourselves as the disadvantaged surplus population. Because the law of demand is downward sloping, the question you should be asking is why there aren't more employers. Because poor people can't buy politicians. If the federal minimum was indexed to the 1968 minimum wage, the federal minimum wage today would be $26 per hour. Most companies would pay their people in vouchers at the company store if they could get away with it. Because progressives wanted 15 or nothing, so we got nothing. Reddit is not a good place to ask this question. In reality, the federal minimum wage is low because it's considered a state's responsibility to set their own minimum wage. Because $15 is a solid amount of money in Mississippi, but nothing in California. Unfortunately, our state governments are full of old lazy idiots who haven't worked a minimum wage job since the 70s. As usual, the solution is more federal oversight. It's getting young, smart people into state political positions.